it's easy to post the quote and talk about an abundant mindset. It's an entirely different thing to give away $20,000 worth of stuff that you love. 47-year-old Kate has got it. I feel great, but my inner child has been freaking out throughout this process. She's been furious with me, questioning why I'm giving up comfort and security and stability and saying things like, what do you mean we're not going to have a home? And what are you doing? And, she wants to be safe and feel comfortable. And so it's been like any parent knows, really comforting your child when they're freaking out and having a tantrum about something. And ultimately, regardless of age, we all want to feel safe. The week I was moving out, I saw this feature in Architectural Digest with Lenny Kravitz showing his stunningly gorgeous home in Paris. And I thought, even when with some things at the end, I'm like, do I really want to part with this? And I asked myself, if you're going to move in with Lenny Kravitz and his Paris pad next week, do you care about this piece of art? And I was like, no. Do you need to take this chair with you? No. I want to talk to you today about following your inner knowing. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I'm not in my normal recording space. I have just moved out of my home in Los Angeles. I donated nearly all of my furniture. I released half of my wardrobe, put the rest in storage, packed 3 suitcases, and came here to Europe. I'm currently in Algarve, Portugal. And it's been a long journey to get here. It took me 3 days to get here because of flight delays and baggage delays, and Air France really trying to keep me from being great by not flying my luggage from Paris to Lisbon. And Lisbon, of course, had a power outage. So I was behind thousands of people waiting to get my lost bag. And it was a whole ordeal, but by nothing short of a miracle. A very, very kind man, George, took pity on me, liked my energy, appreciated my kindness, and went out of his way to track down my bags and hand them to me. So I was only without them for a day, and I could make it to this destination. And so here we are. And I just felt called to record an episode here because this is such a huge moment in my life of taking a gigantic blind leap of faith into the unknown, into complete uncertainty, and not having any proof in the 3D, but knowing internally and feeling in my body the opportunities that are coming in and that I will be guided. And I kept hearing the voice, and it got louder and louder to not only move out of my home, but to leave Los Angeles. And so I decided to take that call and make the move. I'm getting distracted now by people outside my door, so bear with me there. There's lots of distractions here. I don't have any professional tech, but this is raw-ish. And so I just wanted to show up raw in the hope of inspiring you to take your own big, bold leap of blind faith, whatever that means for you. And here to help me do that, because I am so jet lagged. I have not slept in probably 10 days from moving out of my home and all of that stress, all the arrangements, traveling across the world. And so to help us all make meaning of this is, one of our fabulous fan favorites, Scott Mason, a beautiful rawish guest. Scott, thank you so much for helping me bring these insights to life today.
Kate, I have to say, you're jet lagged, you're tired. You've lost your bags. You've been with the kindness of others, finding your way. You haven't got enough sleep. You're still looking great and sounding awesome. Thank you for having me here. And hey, I'm raw too, but that's what this is about. And it was a little bit of a leap of faith for me to sit in front of a camera and be recorded looking a little bit sloppy and natty myself, but you make it easy. Thank you for that.
Oh, well, you look so adorable and fresh. I know you just had your workout, and thank you for doing this last minute. I heard the call, and intuitively it said record an episode here and just talk about your journey and what you're going through, because it brought up a lot of fear and anxiety and stress for me. And I also want to talk about our inner warrior versus our inner child. And I'm so passionate about this. I'm going to say my age. 47-year-old Kate has got it. I feel great, but my inner child has been freaking out throughout this process. She's been furious with me, questioning why I'm giving up comfort and security and stability and saying things like, what do you mean we're not going to have a home? And what are you doing? And, she wants to be safe and feel comfortable. And so it's been like any parent knows, really comforting your child when they're freaking out and having a tantrum about something. And ultimately, regardless of age, we all want to feel safe. And so there has been that. And even today, there's some things that have come up. And I just want to speak to that because there's so many changes going on in the world right now. And I think a lot of people are questioning what they want to do and some really important decisions. And so I think when we're able to talk about this and, candidly, I don't want to talk about a lot of it. And it is such a sacred, very private journey. And I think the reason I don't want to talk about it, Scott, is because I don't want to feel others' insecurities or self-doubts projected at me. I don't want to feel judgment. I don't want to feel jealousy. I don't want to feel other people's unresolved trauma and drama, if you will. And because I have enough of my own things to really work through doing such a big shift like this at this stage in my life. So I'm taking one for the team, and my audience means a lot to me. And it really is. Even posting about a bit of the move on social media, I got more responses than I have in years, I feel like, because I think it really resonates with people right now.
It does resonate with people. And as I'm listening to you, my own inner child is quaking a little bit. It's bordering on tantrum territory. How did you ultimately make that decision? You said earlier, I decided to listen to that voice and make that call. Kate, we both know that people ignore that voice. They ignore that call for their entire lives. I ignored mine for decades. You said, I'm going to do this, even though it is scary to just up and put everything materially that you have in a storage container or donate it or whatever, and then go into the great unknown, not knowing if you're going to run out of money or if anything can happen. What made you say, this is the moment? I'm going to bring out that warrior, make this happen.
Yeah, it was that voice. And I started hearing it last November. And I was driving out of my driveway in Los Angeles on the way to Pilates. It was a beautiful day. Everything was going well. And I heard, and it was my body speaking to me and my higher self speaking to me. And the voice said, I'm ready to go. It's time to go. And I thought, wait a minute, we love it here. And it's like, okay, well, where are we going to go? And there's really nowhere else I want to go. And I had just moved into this house almost a year ago. And I have moved out of 4 homes in 3 years. And I thought, I do not want to move again. And let's make the most of this. And this is a great place. And there's things you like here and people you like here. And so that was that. And then, of course, the fires ravaged through Los Angeles and I was impacted by that. And then the call just kept getting louder and louder. And then I was also getting intuitive messages about opportunities coming in and that I wouldn't have to stay in Los Angeles, or maybe they would take me to other parts of the country, or I could work anywhere in the world. And so I just started getting all of these intuitive downloads, which again, you don't want to really talk about openly because not everybody is into that. People might judge or think it's weird or strange. And so I was really keeping my cards close to my chest. And then there was just so many issues with the house that I was living in, and it was really stealing my peace. And I live on a very, very busy street. It's a beautiful street in nature, but people drive on it like it's the F1. And so it's just constant chaos and disruption. And then the house, I was paying so much money to live in a place I didn't like. And I thought, this is ridiculous. So it's like, okay, I'm going to have to move. I didn't feel called to get another place in Los Angeles. And so it was like, why don't you put everything in storage and figure it out? Go try out some other places. And just some of these opportunities, I thought they would come in by now. And, sometimes things are delayed and it doesn't always happen on our time. So I just had to have trust and faith that when the timing was right, these things were going to come in. In the meantime, I have other work I'm doing that I can do anywhere in the world. And it was so much deeper than any of these words I'm even saying to you, Scott. It literally was my body communicating so loudly that I could not ignore it. And I thought, okay, well, listen, I will do this, and made all of the arrangements to undertake a move, which is exhausting, as you know.
Do you think everyone has that voice somewhere inside, Kate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And I think some hear the call and a few answer. I think everyone hears the call. I think some would argue I've never heard the call, but I would just say to them, you aren't practiced at listening. It's like people saying, I never hear my cell phone ring and I have the ringer on. It's like, well, then maybe go get your hearing checked, or you're not practiced at listening, or you need to turn up the volume. And so for me, the volume was turned up so high that I could no longer ignore it. But everyone, I think, does hear it. I think we hear that you have to leave this relationship. You need to leave this job. You need to go to the doctor. You need to get your child help. Whatever it is, you need to cross the street. Someone coming at you has really aggressive energy and they may attack you or whatever. We hear these things all the time. And I think even I just thought of Gabrielle Union describing a time where she got assaulted and she heard that call, but then her next voice was saying, be a nice girl. She was raised to be a nice girl like we all were. And she didn't want to be rude. She was working at a shoe store in Westwood at UCLA. And this man came in and she said every hair on the back of her neck stood up, but she didn't want to be rude. But he ended up assaulting her in the back of the store. And that's a very intense example. But it's just that reminder to listen to our instincts, to trust them, and then have the courage to follow that action plan that we're given, to not just hear the call, be practiced at listening, but to really answer it.
You mentioned earlier the inner warrior that we all have, along with that inner child. What I'm hearing when you describe that choice to act is the emergence of that inner warrior. But I wonder, and I hope I'm not being offensive here. If I am, clap back at me. If a lot of women in particular are not trained to pay attention to the warrior spirit within them because it's associated with the male, or it's associated with female warrior archetypes that they may not feel comfortable with, or they may not be able to see within themselves. When I look at you, I see the unique, singular Kate Eckman. When you share the story, I see that female warrior with the spear and the shield coming out. But what would you say to a female who might not be able to conceptualize herself? She's been taught her whole life, I've got to be a good girl, or women have to behave in a way that's deferential, or they'll face threats, or whatever other myths people might have inside.
Yeah, I think a woman's intuition is very strong. And I think every woman would agree, I've got it. And it served them at least once and they can recall a time, young or old. And I think there is, it's the patriarchy that women are kind of like, well, who am I to go do that? Or having the audacity. And a lot of women are mothers and the primary caregiver. And so it's just even logistics sometimes. Well, I can't do that. And I understand I have more freedom than most, but it's by choice and by design. And I think it's important and powerful to really own the decisions that we've made and to honor the people who have made different decisions and support them as well. But I understand some people don't have the freedom or the resources to do what I just did. And that said, I have worked my butt off to have the resources, and freedom is my number one value. And I have consistently made choices to honor that value. And so I am in this position to do that. And I hope that's an example for everybody else to honor and dial up their values. First, figure out what they are, but to really lead with them. And I think with women too, I want to be a representation of that too. It's kind of like some of these things I do. Yeah, it's very like a man of me. Because even if a man was married or with kids, he would just be like, well, I'm going off to Portugal for a month, or I'm doing this. And so I think it's just really, it's not a male or female thing. I think a warrior is more of something that we embody, and it's a choice and it's a decision. And I see you kind of laughing because it's an energy, and we don't need to give a gender or gender role to being fierce and ferocious. And if we are, that's actually a woman. Hello, Mother Nature. There's nothing more fierce than Mother Nature.
Reminds me of that 1970s commercial. It's not nice to fool Mother Nature. And then she basically causes calamity across the whole planet.
Yeah, exactly.
It is courageous not to just make the bold move, but to leave everything that you had behind. As you were talking about getting rid of all your material items, for whatever reason, the little boy that went to Sunday school was thinking about Lot's wife in the Bible. She and her husband and her daughters were told to flee Sodom and Gomorrah and not look back. Lot's wife couldn't help herself. She looked back because she missed all of the material goods that she had had as a wealthy woman in Sodom, and she turned to a pillar of salt. Were you afraid that you might look back and turn into a pillar of salt? Like, how did it feel leaving all this stuff behind?
I'm glad I don't know that story. And I don't think of these things. So thank you. I do have, in full disclosure, I do have a storage unit in Cincinnati. So I'm just like, well, I have some stuff there. And I'm in this cleansing and releasing and purging mode. And I think anytime that I wanted to hold on to something, I just thought of people who need it more in my community, the fire victims and other people who are not as fortunate or privileged as I. And so there's so many people. There was moments I couldn't believe the essentially brand new, expensive, designer, incredible clothes, furniture, accessories that I was just giving away like it was some like old, ratty, disgusting thing that you would donate. I mean, everything that I gave away was in excellent condition, high quality, but it brought me so much joy to give it to friends. A friend of mine who has been through a lot in childhood trauma and so forth. It felt good to give him things. You know, he has struggled. It felt good to give my friend Miranda, who's another single independent woman like myself, who's done it all on her own for so long. It felt good to gift her the most beautiful plants. And I saw them in her house and it brought me so much joy. And the plants were saying, we're so happy here and we're going to thrive and we're going to help Miranda grow and thrive like we did at your house and how we helped you. And so I was just so happy that my plant children had a good place to go, because you were the one person I told when I gave them to Miranda. I actually had a moment and I cried saying goodbye to my plants, because as you said, they have consciousness and there's that energy. And it gets me emotional now, because my 3 years in California, my plants were my faithful companions. They were there for me 24/7. They heard a lot of laughter and tears, and they sat with me and they gave me so much joy and peace and beauty and just surrounded me as companions. And so it was hard to release them. It really was, because they are living, and the stuff that the inanimate objects, you know, those can go. And I really did, Scott, step into an abundant mindset. And we hear that all the time from the Instagram girls and on social media, and the abundance mindset and so forth. And I think it's one thing to post a quote or talk about it, or even talk about research or talk about all the mindset research or studies or whatnot. I think it's an entirely different thing to live it, because it's easy to post the quote and talk about an abundant mindset. It's an entirely different thing to give away $20,000 worth of stuff that you love. Everything I gave away, I love. And I'm not a multimillionaire, billionaire yet. And I am not crushing it with the finances in the moment. But it's just, again, such an act of faith. It's such an act of generosity. And I am communicating crystal clear with the universe who I am, where I'm going. And I'm also creating space for so much money and abundance to pour in, and the relationships and the lifelong partnerships and the soul connections. I'm clearing space. It's that whole, if you build it, they will come. You want the partner, maybe have some space in your home for them and show the universe that you're serious. So for me, I got really, really serious with the universe, with a higher power, with the world, and just saying, look at this. Don't even listen to me. Look at what I'm doing. And I could feel the universe is already responding to me like, wow, this woman's serious. And this woman's actually doing what so many people talk about, but don't do for whatever reason. And I'm not knocking it. Maybe I couldn't do this a couple years ago, but I just think this is such a lesson for all of us to stop holding on to things that we've outgrown. Stop holding on to all the stuff. Stop holding on to these outdated relationships or thought patterns or belief systems, and just be open to releasing it to create new. And that's what this is. It's just one big act of faith.
There were a lot of pathways that this conversation could take based on that really deep set of statements. But there's two I feel compelled to draw us to, one at a time. First, the story of your plants. What a powerful allegory for what you've done that I would love to hear your thoughts on. You described the relationship that you had with your plants where they were, where you had been, and what was comfortable, surely for them as well as for you. They took a leap themselves and had to trust. They didn't really have a choice, but they had to trust that the place that you take them will be a place where, as you said more or less a few minutes ago, they create a new, beautiful habitat and bring wonderful things to those around them there. In other words, the radical transition away from everything that they knew and were comfortable with opened up doors for the creation of possibilities and beautiful things being brought to whole other groups of people that may have needed them or might not have even realized that they needed them, but now are going to receive. Am I reaching here?
No, even the comments I've gotten from people whom I donated things to, they've sent me the nicest notes and just how much joy and beauty and connection that it's brought to their space and how it makes them feel. And just with the plants. I mean, my friend is so grateful. She had people to her house and they were raving about my plants, and especially this palm. I mean, the palm looks straight out of the Four Seasons and any White Lotus season. I mean, it's that stunning. And these plants are from one of the best nurseries in the country in Laguna Beach. And I got them right when I was in that home. And they've been through it all with me. And I just think it's important to take care of our things and honor them, but just also being willing to pass things on and let somebody else enjoy them and have that faith. Sorry, I'm so exhausted right now. So even thinking, I think I'm going back to my home in Los Angeles and just thinking about all the work that it took to move into that house, set it up. I spent so much time, energy, money setting it up. I created such a beautiful space that I was so proud of, that brought me so much comfort. It really was the caterpillar cocoon, and I flew out and emerged as the butterfly. And so I'm grateful for that space, as stressful and as expensive as it was. And it just feels good to release, Scott. And I think something else that helped me that may help someone, and it's kind of funny, and it's like, okay, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. But the week I was moving out, I saw this feature in Architectural Digest with Lenny Kravitz showing his stunningly gorgeous home in Paris. And I thought, even when with some things at the end, I'm like, do I really want to part with this? And I asked myself, if you're going to move in with Lenny Kravitz and his Paris pad next week, do you care about this piece of art? And I was like, no. Do you need to take this chair with you? No. And then I thought, I'm meeting my husband soon. I can feel it. And I'm like, he has beautiful homes and I'm not going to need to take stuff. Where I am now, furnished. Obviously, I'm not taking any furniture to Europe. I know I'm going to be relocating. Maybe that place is furnished. Or like I said, I have stuff in a storage unit. So it was just time. And of course, the plants can't come with us, but I can't stress this enough. And this is your sign. Please donate this stuff now, not even because you're moving, not because you don't like it, not because it's old. I think we need to honor our peers and community members as well, too. And we all donate or take stuff to Goodwill or stuff. But how about giving away stuff we really love instead of stuff we hate or that we really shouldn't even be donating? And so I think it's just honoring ourselves, but also honoring others. And then, you only get to keep what you give away, which is one of my favorite spiritual principles. And so for me, I don't need to be showered with chairs and art or plants, but I can be showered with love and generosity. And as I'm talking, I think, wow, I now am very aware of the signs. I'm aware of how I'm being responded to in the world. And I just think of those acts of generosity and kindness and what it did for people. And then with all this ordeal with the missing luggage and being in a hotel where there was a discotheque still blasting music at 5 a.m. and having to change hotels, and just the people who've shown up for me just, a few days in Portugal, they really are angels. And I told them that, and I know it meant so much to them. And even that connection and just the impact I had on the people at the hotel and the man at the luggage service at the Lisbon airport who was dealing with so many grumpy, nasty people yelling at him. He went out of his way to help me. So see, I've already received that generosity back, not in the form of a chair or piece of art, but in found luggage and getting it only a day later, and in the generosity of getting this hotel room for free in the middle of the night.
And that zooms right into the second thread from your earlier comments, abundance. What I'm hearing you describe with all of this sharing and this generosity from people is a response to the abundance that you gave to them by passing through yourself. The universe is love. By simply behaving in a way that's respectful or appreciative, that is a form of abundance. But for me, at least, Kate, so often abundance has been associated with fear, because in giving, you're letting go. Stepping into the abundance for whomever you may be there for, through and then beyond this journey, involved, I assume, at some level, fear of letting go all of the comfort and the cocoon you just talked about. Also, you mentioned abundance is always thrown out there as this Instagram meme, and it's on these quotes of the day, and people just say it. But living it means confronting the fear of giving of yourself material, and sometimes when you're tired or when you are frustrated or when life seems to be piling up everything against you, it's giving against what your inner nature may be. How have you come to overcome that fear in the moment to step into the abundance for tomorrow?
It's not a sexy answer, but I have put in the work. I have been obsessed with my healing and transformation and growth. It's been my number one job. It's been my number one priority. It's been a priority like someone who's committed to sobriety is committed to working the 12 steps and going to meetings and not having a sip of alcohol or doing drugs. I literally have treated it like life or death. And the reason those people who take it seriously are so committed is because they could have one drink and die. And I've really treated my healing journey like that. Things that I've been through in California, while it was great, I went through a lot, and it really broke me down at times. And it was kind of life or death. Like, I really have treated my healing like Tom Brady preparing for his umpteenth Super Bowl. And I'm inspired by him because, we're the same age and we were both Big Ten athletes at the same time. And I saw what he was able to do and the longevity he had in sport. So I treated my life like sport. And I have hired incredible professionals, and something that really helped me, because there was fear. There was moments where I thought, what are you doing? Or what if these contracts don't come in? Or what if this call doesn't happen? Or what if the money doesn't come in? And if you talk to anybody, you're going to be judged because it's scary and it's not a practical path. Like, don't talk to an attorney. I know you're one. Don't talk to a financial advisor, because they will shame you and talk to you and treat you like you've lost your mind. But it's just kind of like, what kind of life do we want to have? And I truly believe when you take these risks that, like I said, the universe does work on your behalf. But my therapist, Jane McCampbell Stewart, who's been a guest on Raj as well, she has really helped me. And so much of it is, she helped me first do two things. One, connect my body with my mind through exercises that we do. And we do tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique tapping, while we go through her process. It's extraordinary. I feel like one session, I've cleared out 10 years worth of stuff. But one of the things we did was, you had to talk about if you're lovable, or is it safe to be loved, and all these different things. And your mind would answer on a scale of 1 to 7 in the body. And my body was always lagging behind my mind. So it really has been clearing out the trauma from my body. We won't get into all of that, but getting my body so solid. And then also, what's this other exercise that we did recently? Oh, sorry. Again, everyone bear with me. I'm very, very tired. I cannot sleep for whatever. There's just been, I think I know what it is. It's my inner child and my nervous system trying to adjust to all the change, all the disruption, some uncomfortable feelings, managing other people's stuff, and then moving, which is one of the most stressful things to do, traveling across the world, very stressful. And then all the hoopla with the airlines and baggage and whatnot. And then being on an 8 hours ahead of my normal time and all the things. And so Jane has really helped me work with my inner child. And I love this practice so much. My dream and wish in life is that everybody hire Jane. And she's helped me with that too. Like, when I'm just like, why isn't everybody doing this? Because the world would be so much better. And I would like to be in relationship with people who are doing this work. If they would be, we'd all be in much healthier relationships. And she's really helped me say, Kate, this person is a grown adult and they make their decisions. So she's helped me even release expectations for other people, especially loved ones who I wish would do more work on themselves. And then also, she has me do this exercise where she says, we're tapping, and she says, girls. And I'm literally talking to all these prior versions of myself from like birth up until even maybe a year ago. And she has them, it's like having kids. And I don't have kids, but I have enough of my own inner children who communicate with me a lot and like very direct and dramatically at times. But she had me gather around and just like letting them know, like, this is what we're doing. And, you know, do you trust me to have any concerns? And one of my inner children, she was throwing a tantrum and she was the one who was furious. Like, what are you doing? We're not going to have a home. Have you lost? And it gets me emotional talking about it. She's like, have you lost your mind? And so me, like capable, competent, confident 47-year-old Kate says to her, you got to, it's going to make me emotional. She's like, you got to trust me here. I know what I'm doing. And I was so convicted in that because I feel that. You talk about something I feel in my body. It's like, I know what I'm doing. And so it's with that confidence and doing the work to replace all these insecurities with the confidence that you got to trust me here, and saying it to my inner child and all prior versions of self and meaning it. It's like how probably people feel as the breadwinner. I've got a wife and 10 kids depending on me to eat and to have shelter and to have clothes. That's how I feel right now, where I'm like, I've got a lot of people depending on me. And it's like, you got to trust me. And you have to trust me when we have no proof, when we have not signed on dotted lines yet, when we're spending money to travel and be somewhere else and we don't feel comfortable staying in a really place. And so, but this is bringing in more abundance. But it is really, I invite everybody to start having these conversations with their inner children and connecting with them. And you say your name and you say, you know, girls, it's 47-year-old Kate here. And I know you're freaking out. I know you think I've lost my mind, but you got to trust me here. And I saw the shift when I would do these sessions with Jane these last few months, and it works. It has been such a beautiful journey for me before this inner child, because my inner child today was just kind of like, I'm tired. And like the kids probably like, can we go to the pool? I'm like, all right, we got to shoot this podcast episode and we got to create this content and we got to do this. My inner child's like, I'm really tired. And so I shut it all down, Scott, and I just relaxed, and we laid in bed, and she had me bring my teddy bear, which is pretty gigantic. It doesn't usually travel with me, but like I've got this big teddy bear here because when she agreed to, you know, move and come to Europe, I said, what do you need? And she said, can we please just take the teddy bear? Aww. And I said, yes, we can take the teddy bear. And so the teddy bear is here. And I just laid in bed with the teddy bear all day in our pajamas, which she loves. And we went for a little walk and we got some food, and then we just sat and looked at the ocean. And so it's just that reminder to be mindful of these past versions of us who got us here to where we are today. So we honor them. We love them. They've been through a lot of, we have to pay attention to them. And by listening to them, those are also the voices that say, we got to go. Because 47-year-old Kate at the time, 46-year-old Kate was like, I love LA. I'm not leaving. But prior versions were like, it's time to go. So it's listening, and it is a practice. You know, we do meditation, but it is a practice to, when you hear this, not be like, am I crazy or what is that? Or just brush it off like, wow, I should listen to that. But I think we don't, because it's scary. And then you have to make big, bold moves, like move out of your home, city, town, state, and country, perhaps, and not even hope or pray, because I have things in the works. And if this quote unquote thing doesn't work out, something, I don't even want to say bigger or better, something different will.
I'm torn though, listening to this, Kate. On the one hand, I'm hearing that song Funky Town run through my head. She had to make a move to a town that was right for her. She had to make a move, take a groove, feel some energy. And she talked about it. And then she finally moved on to Funky Town. So I'm feeling that as one way of expressing, since you mentioned discotheques earlier, one way of expressing everything that you're talking about. Then I'm also thinking about The Wizard of Oz, or The Wiz, where Dorothy ends up on this crazy journey. And especially I mentioned The Wiz because at the end, Glinda the Good Witch says, home is knowing your heart, knowing your mind, knowing your courage, knowing your spirit, something like that. If you know yourself, You're always at home anytime. And then she sings her song. Kate, how have you gotten to a place where you can say, today, I don't have a home? Or do you think you have a home?
I love this. And I love that you said that, because when I was working through all this, again, I've been very, very open. So I'm getting so many intuitive downloads and messages, and in the midst of, and I'm a writer, and I'm always just sitting and I'm journaling, and ideas are coming to mind. But I heard home is a frequency. And I loved that. Home is a frequency. So that is something that we embody, that we can tune into. And it's much deeper than structures of a physical house. And it is something that we can create anywhere we go. And I always like to say, anyway, I'm a citizen of the world. And listen, I'm a moon in Cancer. So my home and the comfort of home literally means everything to me. And I spend so much time setting up every detail and investing in things to bring me comfort and peace and joy. And to blow that up so many times in the past couple of years, to go from having 3 homes to 0 homes, is something I would never even imagine in a million years, ever. But this weird thing has happened, Scott, in this process, is that, well, I've never had 0 homes ever in my life. Obviously, I had my parents' home until 18, and then the college dorms and whatnot, but I've always had a home and an address. And this is the first time in my life that I don't. And yet, this is the most at peace I have ever felt by far in my life. I have never been more calm. I am a woman who, up until recently, I would always say about myself, I have no chill. Like, I am not laid back at all. I have this spirit of excellence. I push, I go, I strive, I hustle, and I just let that all go. And I noticed this shift in myself when things were blowing up with the airport and the luggage and the no sleep and the discotheque hotel. And even a couple months ago, I feel like I would have lost my and I was so calm. And I attribute it to all this work I've done. You know, they say if you do the work, it works. And I'm kind of in awe, just like stepping back and looking at the calmness of it. But I think it really speaks to, I'm calm and at peace because I know in my heart that I am on the right path, that I'm exactly where I should be, not because everything's figured out, not because of all these externals, because of the internals. And I truly believe when you get the internals in alignment, and I've spoken about this for years, but now I feel like I'm truly, truly embodying what I'm saying. The internals are so calibrated and so lined up that I think that's why I'm so calm and peaceful. I have nothing else to worry about. I'm like, how can these things not happen? I have become a vibrational, energetic match for the abundance, for the huge contracts, for the dream husband, for the dream property, that I can't be bothered to stress about some $1,200 chair and that I'm giving it away and not getting paid, or I need to hang on to it because what if this or what if that? It's like, let it go. Do you know what's coming? And then believing that what's coming is so incredible that I don't need to hold on to anything. And I think I got that last test at the airport. I have traveled extensively my whole life. I've never lost my luggage ever. I've never dealt with these horror stories. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. I just got rid of almost everything that I own. I've got my 2 suitcases that I checked, my 2 suitcases with all my favorite stuff in it that I need to survive. I want the comfort. You're going to take that away too. And I was just stripped down to nothing, where it's like, I surrender. And in that moment, I was just so calm because it's like, there's no fight to even have here. You just have to. But again, my instincts, follow your instincts. My instincts told me the next day, you need to go to the airport. They're not going to deliver it. Go to the airport. I was standing in that line. There was hundreds of people in that line. The news was there. It was awful. And a man who was in charge of the whole lost and found luggage program came up to me in line and said, did you get a text message from us? And show me the name, whatever it was called, Manza or something. And I said, no. And he said, then you're wasting your time standing in line. We don't have your luggage. We'll text when you get a text, then you can come back and get it. And I said, what? And I said, when do you think that'll be? He's like, a couple of days. And I'm like, well, I'm already late going to my hotel. I've already paid for. He's like, well, we'll ship it there, but you're not going to get it for days. And I remember my instincts. It wasn't even wishful thinking. My instincts completely rejected him and what he was saying, because I knew, Scott, I'm like, my bags are here. And even Air France did confirm your bags are there, but they're like, you're in line behind all the people from the blackout. And again, I got up to the front of that line after waiting for hours, and I just smiled at the man and I said, how are you doing? This is awful. And he was just so kind back. I think he appreciated that. And he said, your bags aren't even in the system as missing, but they're here. He's like, can you wait for another half hour? I'm going to go back. Like my colleague is taking over for me. I'm going to go and back and check. He didn't have to do that. No. He did. And sure enough, the bags were there. And it was just such a miracle moment that proves my whole point and everything that I'm talking about.
You and I had a super impactful conversation earlier this year. In January of 2025 was when this conversation occurred, that ties into the part of that story that relates to the first man who was, I would say, energetically not on an upward trajectory in that moment. And it went as to something I was discussing with you around some feedback I was getting about my own trajectory. I don't know if you remember this, but one of the things that you shared with me is, Scott, you may be attracting all of this feedback, but you need to be discerning about it. It's not always the gift that you need to accept. That was a profound transformational moment for me. In my own spiritual practices, I began to really commit to and ask for help from the Great Spirit with regards to discernment. How do you know when you're facing situations like the one that you did with that first person in the line, to be discerning, to create an energetic boundary so that that wasn't the energy that ultimately ended up overriding the energy that you needed to keep moving forward and ultimately have that magic happen?
Yeah. And you have that inner calibration and you know who you are. And someone comes up to me and says, I don't like you because you're a Black man. That's how outrageous it is. It's like, I'm literally the opposite of a Black man. I could not be more fair skinned and I'm a woman. And so it's kind of a silly thing to say, but essentially that man came up to me and said, I don't like you because you're a Black man. I'm not going to own that at all, because, and even if he said, I don't like you because you're a white blonde woman, I'd be like, I don't care, but at least he's correct on what I look like. But it's just, I think we need to, my grandmother always said, consider the source. I think it's deeper than that. I think when we truly know who we are, there's nothing anyone can say to you that can sway you off course. And for me, I knew, like my name is Kate Eckman, that my bags are there. I went there to get them. Now, there clearly could have been a chance that I didn't. There was another American couple I was in line with on that same flight. And while he was checking for my bags, he was going to check for theirs too. They were not friendly to me. Like, I was really trying to be warm and connect with them. They were not friendly. The guy I don't even know what we were talking about, but he says, what do you do for a living? So there was something there that he was triggered by, or I don't know what. And as it turns out, when I went back to collect my bags, George said from security, he said to me, I'm so sorry, and he called them my friends, which they weren't, but he said, I don't have your friends' bags, only yours. And I just, again, it was kind of like the not so nice people who were kind of rejecting me and not trying to talk to me, their bags aren't here. But I think that we have to really lean into our own truth, because I know for a fact, even maybe you love me and support me. If I said to you, do you think it's a good idea? I gave you all the facts of my case, if you will, attorney friend. You would probably, from a logical, practical mind, I would argue, counselor, that I was going to call you Your Honor. I always upgrade you to a judge. You would say, Kate, I don't think that's a good idea. Or I think of similar things in the past. So I've learned not to share with a lot of people. And I think that's great advice too, because we know, but society will try to tell us something else. Our parents, our friends, our colleagues, people who love us, people who have well-meaning intention. But if you're bold and daring and brave enough to live an unconventional life and to think and live outside the box, they even say about Aquarians, y'all don't think outside the box, you live outside the box. If you're on a different path, most people aren't going to understand your journey or even appreciate it. But I know, even just sharing this one post I shared today about leaving LA and coming here and gave some details, the response I got, I can really tell that it shook and stirred things up in people. And that was my goal, because candidly, my inner child wants to hide under the covers and really not talk to anybody right now and just like enjoy where I am. There's something for me kind of sexy about nobody really knowing what I'm doing or where I am. But, I'm in the public and I host this show and I want people to know what's going on with me because I think my journey is a little juicy. I think there's some nuggets here. And even if just one person has one takeaway that changes their life for the better, I've done my job and it just makes what I'm doing that much more rewarding.
On the subject of those people, not the ones in your audience who have really felt this and supported you or who have been curious and learned and taken it in, but those who may have known you and been with you and supported you in prior iterations, who may not understand or who may think they understand what you're doing. But Kate, you've mentioned earlier, you've traveled around the world in your life. I've traveled fairly extensively too, although not professionally, but for other reasons. And every time I've thrown who I was away and traveled somewhere else, met new people, experienced things, had adventures, I've changed. And people are going to shift in how they perceive you because of this. It isn't just, although it matters, your own vibrational shift and opening yourself up to the abundance of what the journey will bring you and the excitement and the adventure and the growth and the emergence of the warrior and strengthening that warrior even more so that she's prepared to take on even more as you move forward. But the change in the human connections that you have that you'll be leaving or that may move on in a different direction, how are you dealing with that as already you're having life and perspective changing experiences?
I'm really realizing and accepting and embracing that I'm just a mirror. I'm a mirror for people and I'm just holding up so you can see your own reflection. And I'm really finding even that day at the airport was a perfect example. I got so much love from certain people. And then one lady, when she saw me in the back getting my bags from George, she was just like, why are you getting your bags in front of me? And actually screamed at me. And it was just, again, very jarring, but I do deep inner work and I'm very sensitive and I feel everything so deeply, as you know, and it's a gift and a curse. And so even on one hand with that, I'm like, whatever. But again, it's the sensitive inner child. It's like, well, what's up with that? And, my intentions are so pure. And I'm like, the guy called me back and I got my luggage. I didn't do anything. And when I went really deep, which I like to do, I journal, I meditate, I ask, spirit, what is that about? And what I got was that she was projecting all her frustrations onto me, but it was also, she hasn't owned that she is blessed and highly favored, perhaps, that things can be easy, that you can receive without force, that people will just do things for you just because, or if you're genuinely kind, people will go out of their way to help you. It was just a lot of her own disowned parts being projected outward. So I think the more that we can just understand big picture and what's going on, the less that we take personally. And listen, I have been hurt and devastated by a lot of people in the past couple of years, or even today, I do this post or this one woman, like people are sending me direct messages. And I thought, this woman has ignored me for 2 years. We were supposed to do a project together. She has completely ignored me for 2 years, hasn't acknowledged like any success, anything I've done. Won't even they won't even acknowledge that I have a podcast, which is my baby, my number one thing. But then she sends me a message like, did you move to Portugal? And it's kind of like, hey, why do you think you even get to know that? Because I left my post a little mysterious. I didn't give any definitive, it's just kind of like, here I am for now and, make what you will of it. And my true friends like yourself or people that love and support me, I'm happy to share details if you ask. But I'm also happy to say, like, I don't have a definitive plan. That's part of the plan, is that there's not some concrete plan right now. But it's just interesting that this woman just kind of dismissed me or didn't really see me. But now, because this is another reason to embrace this journey, is now I am just, the truth is so powerful. And like when the truth is just in people's faces, they can no longer ignore you, or they can't pretend they're not seeing, because it's so confronting when someone is so in alignment with their purpose and their path and their truth that they can't ignore you anymore. And those are the same people who will ask you for advice, will want to hire you, will wants you to hook them up with this opportunity that you get. And it's just interesting. And so now I kind of observe it, but because I see exactly what's going on, but it just inspires me to, I was going to say work even harder, but I think just keep doing the inner calibration so that I'm just unaffected by all of that. And that these players, while I wish them well, they're just irrelevant in my story. You don't get to ignore me and the becoming and then be part of what I'm doing and who I've become and this really beautiful life that I've created out of nothing.
Yeah, all it takes is to just show some interest in another human being's life too. Again, on the subject of spiritual and emotional and social abundance, all it takes is saying, "How are you doing?" every now and then. I care about you. You matter. Not everyone is going to be ready to take a big step like what you did. And we've talked about that as an ongoing thread here. There's a great author I read by the name of Gene Wolfe. He's my favorite ever. And he says the big leap might not be right for you, but maybe you can take a little step in that direction and a little step in that. Do you agree with him? And did you need to take little steps before you took this big step? Or were you always like, no, girl, it's off into the deep end, or I'm sitting on the deck?
I love that. Not everybody is meant to live the life I'm living or live the life that you're living. And I'm not meant to be at home with 6 kids. I mean, everyone has their own path and journey. I just want to say to, let's say, the mother at home with 6 kids, is this what you really want to do? And at that point, it's like, well, it's kind of, you got 6 kids, so you can't just go off to Europe for a couple of months. I mean, you can, but it's not a good look. So I think there are small steps that you can take. But I think the number one thing is we have to spend time getting clear on who we are and what really matters. And once you know that, that's a huge part of the battle. But then it's getting practice at listening to this voice and not ignoring it. And then having the trust and the faith in yourself. Yes, in a higher power, of course. Yes, in the world, of course. But really, this is for me, while I'm able to do that, I finally believe in myself. And it's God, spirit, universe, that whole force that's been waiting for me to be ready. And I can say, like, I've been ready. I've been ready for my husband. I've been ready for these huge contracts. I've been ready for this success and to be seen in a really big way publicly in my career. But really, my nervous system would not agree with that. Choices I would make was not agreeing with that. I still had stuff to overcome. And so it really is about honoring our unique journey and liking even this hard work that we're putting in that's uncomfortable and feels like we're going backwards at times. But to get to this place now and see the reward of I'm calm under the most stressful situations. Well, I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. I can't even believe I'm this calm and composed. Wow. I mean, that's success right there. That's the growth right there. So I think we really have to honor that. Not everybody's meant to move as much as I've moved and travel around and choose not to get married or have kids at a certain age. I know that I've made some pretty disruptive choices to the status quo. I offer, invite, and encourage everyone to just, even if we talk about moving or clothing donation, I dare you to go into your closet and find a piece you love. It may still have the tag on it. It may have cost $500 or $50, and take it out and donate it because someone at the shelter down the street, someone at your church, someone somewhere needs it more than you. And I think that is just a simple way that represents our abundance mindset, that represents our trust in ourselves to make more money to replace that item, that relies on the universe to send us something else to wear to work or to wear to the wedding or whatever. So I think the more you can just challenge yourself to do things that scare you, huge. The more that you can do things that make you say, I am so proud of myself. Again, it sounds almost self-indulgent because what do we normally do? We beat ourselves up. Why'd you say that dumb thing? You didn't add up. You didn't do enough. You're not pretty enough or whatever it is. But when I've had so many moments recently, Scott, where I just sit and marvel at my journey. And I just say to myself, like a best friend, I'm so proud of you. So I think the more things that we can do, it's going to be different for everybody, that you can sit back and say, well done. Bravo, brava. And there's just pride there, and that we're taking care of ourselves. And besides just eating healthy and sleeping, that we're caring for our desires.
One thing that you said earlier that I have a feeling is so relatable to so many people is that you so often, when you were talking about your career, you're describing the person traveling around. Not everyone travels around for their career, but what I'm hearing within that statement is I have been very, very busy during large parts of my life. And yet you still manage to develop this practice of somehow hearing your higher self speak or being able to get clarity about what that inner voice is. A lot of the folks watching or listening to Raw ish may be, like you mentioned, moms with 6 kids at home. So they're hearing a lot of voices all the time. And then if they're not that, they may be an attorney or an analyst for a huge investment house or something like that, where they're working endless hours and they've got to focus on churning out whatever paperwork they need to churn out. Or maybe they own a construction business and they have all these deadlines that they need to fulfill. And if they're female construction business owners, just off the top of my head, they may have all of these voices telling them that they need to perform at a certain level because people expect men to do this sort of work or whatever it is that they might be doing better than they do. How did you figure out a way to clear your own other voices out there and all of this other vocal debris so that you could focus on that inner voice and know that that's what's being heard and not have all this other just junk constantly punching through?
You just said it, distractions, and you see it. It's a trauma response, it's a coping mechanism. People would rather die than sit with themselves and look at themselves. And my therapist has helped me with this too. And I've had to really release that not everybody is meant to go on not just a journey like mine, but to get really deep with themselves, to have this kind of relationship with themselves. And it saddens me deeply, but this is a recent shift. I've had to let that go and let people live their lives and maybe never come to any of these conclusions. And they're probably not watching this show. So there's that. But I think we have to, for instance, maybe that friend that you had lunch with every Friday who was kind of dismissive of your emotions, who just talked about themselves, who really wasn't your friend. Maybe that hour each week, now you have that hour to go to lunch with yourself, to sit at home and journal, to go for a walk and listen to this podcast and get some insights, to have that time for yourself. Because people tell me all the time they don't have time, but I'm like, I don't have time to be angry, so I meditate. I don't have time to be miserable, so I spend time with myself and take care of myself and things like that. So I think I even set the timers on my phone. I'm like, oh, I didn't have time for that. I'm like, you were on Instagram for 2 hours today. That 2 hours, you could have been doing something else. We all have things in coping medicine that we need. But I think for me, I was in a place where like I said, I could have gone I don't even want to say destructive because that's not my personality, but I could have gone down a very sad road, I will say, and my road did get sad there for a bit, but I didn't have to do all this work to be where I am now. But it does feel like it's more than just for me, Scott. It really does feel like it's for the collective, and that my healing does heal the collective. And again, I heard the call that my mission is to talk about these things. And then if you're going to talk about it, you need to actually embody it and be the example for people. And so I think that's part of it. I hope I'm making sense. I'm noticing how exhausted I am.
It doesn't matter, right? All of this is free flow. I have 2 more questions. Are you up for that?
Yeah.
We're living in an era in which a lot of people are hearing voices that are reactive to external events. You talked earlier about the chaos that the whole world is going through, economic convulsions, political theatrics, risks that seem existential to the entire nature of the structural order on a global scale that we live in. People have been saying for years now I can't stand, for instance, living in the United States anymore. Let me get some sort of passport and see if I can move to Portugal or to Canada or some other Asia, anywhere. How do you know that the voice that you're hearing saying go isn't a reactive voice, but it is a true voice that's tied to whatever the next stage of your life is meant to be?
I love this. I first heard wherever you go, there you are. And so, because I've done that in the past, I'm like, well, I'm just going to escape and go to Italy. And then I'm, in Italy and it's great. And I'm having great wine and great pizza and great pasta, but I'm still feeling miserable. I'm still thinking about that guy who did me wrong. You take your trauma and drama there. So that's the first part. But it's so clear when it's time to go. It's much deeper than the voice you hear. The distinction I want everyone to pay attention to is how you feel in your body. You will feel it. You will feel it. And it is a muscle that you get better and better at really feeling it. And it's like, oh, it's so clear. I mean, even now, sometimes I'm like, gosh, I'm too sensitive. I'll be standing next to someone and I will remove myself because I'll just feel, or I'll feel projections coming at me or whatever it is. And so I think the more that we can really, and we avoid this, in our body. That's why, I'm a former emotional overeater, and it's hard to even, it makes me sad to say, and it's hard to even think about that I was numbing. It's like, yes, I love the taste of pizza or cupcakes or whatever, but when you're eating in excess and when you're full and you keep eating, you're numbing something. And we see a high use of drugs and alcohol and everything that people are numbing and killing and poisoning their bodies so that they don't have to feel. So here again, we have this superpower of consciousness, both in our mind and in our body, and our spirit is consciousness that Rima, my guest, taught us also. We have this extraordinary consciousness. Why do you think that there's so much drug use and alcohol use and overeating and all the numbing and suppressing? I'm getting a download right now. It's like we're suppressing our superpower. So we all have it. You asked, we have these extraordinary gifts that we're numbing and suppressing and killing, literally. So it shows how powerful we are and how much that scares us at times. People are so scared of their power. They're not scared of their limitations as much as they're scared of their power. You can tell by how they treat themselves. So again, and I know this isn't for everybody, and everyone does not want to go on this path. I wish they did, but it is feeling. And so I think for me too, as we're talking, I have been through such a purification process. People, you tell a man that you're celibate and they worry about you. They'll try to tell you that's unhealthy, but purification rituals of what I'm eating. I've cleaned up my eating. I do not drink alcohol anymore. I am celibate. I have cleared out a lot of people who were not for me. And it's been lonely and it's been challenging, but I feel the purification. So now, not only am I hearing the voice, I'm feeling it in my body and I'm taking action. And when I'm taking action, I'm in a place of confidence because I trust, because I have done that inner calibration. I hope that all makes sense.
It not only made sense, it was really raw. Kate, I've been on a journey with you simply by hearing everything that you've had to say today. What are you most excited about when it comes to the phase of your adventure that's ahead of you right now?
I think I'm most excited to really, for the first time in my life, try on this experience of receiving, knowing and trusting and believing that I have done enough. I am more than enough. I've done the work. I'm going to keep doing what I need to do, but allowing and receiving and being so excited to receive phone calls, to receive emails, to meet soul partners, to do incredible work, to call in the players who are going to help me take my life and career to the next level, knowing I'm going to do my part. I think I'm really looking forward to having more joy and pleasure in my life, to learn through pleasure rather than pain, to fully know and embrace that I have cleared out ancestral trauma. I have broken generational curses. I have shifted timelines. I've really ended, what this feels like is that I've ended this karmic cycle where I don't need to learn that lesson again. I do not need to go through that anymore. It's kind of like, it feels, Scott, like this beautiful graduation, birthday, anniversary, Super Bowl title. It feels like all of that nobody is cheering for or acknowledging except for me. And there's something actually kind of beautiful in that because it just feels so sacred. And I think that's it too. When you're at this place, you don't need any of that stuff, but then you ultimately get it because they're inspired and they want that for themselves. But it feels like the graduation and there's no party and there's no people in the auditorium. I'm just in there, and you and I have talked about that. I'm in there clapping for myself, but it's this beautiful moment that I get to have. And I wish this for everybody because it actually, as I'm discovering, is so much more meaningful than all of the applauses because we've gotten the validation. And then what do we need? We're like drug addicts. We need another hit and we need another hit and we need another hit. And it's never good enough and it's never enough. But when you're just in that auditorium clapping for yourself, that's real. That's genuine. Nobody can ever take that away from you. And it's that feeling of, I did it. And you don't need anybody else because you know, without a shadow of a doubt, I did this.
As you were saying that, there was a period in which you were looking slightly upward and you had a smile on your face, but from behind your eyes, I could see the radiance. And that says to me that it's real. Kate, people always associate, or people too often associate, the word raw with pain and crying and suffering and emergence from hardship. And that is a lot of being raw. But what you just showed me was the other side of raw, which was joy. Do you want to do a closeout?
I just wrote down raw radiance. I've never said that. I've never felt that. I've never put those two words together. So thank you for getting me to a place in this next chapter of raw radiance. And the tears I cry now are tears of gratitude, just being so excited that I have luggage. I can put my pajamas on and wash my face and put on clean clothes. It's those tears of gratitude and the raw radiance. And so this is a new thing for all of us to call in and not just work towards, but really receive. We can receive this raw radiance and let it shine through us. And I think even me being in this state of not feeling articulate, being so exhausted, but also just feeling so called to get on and have this conversation. And I hope everybody got one thing from it, but I will take this away, the raw radiance, and really walk even taller and with my shoulders back and my head held high because I've earned this and I want this for everybody. And so, Scott, thank you so much for being here. And thanks to all of you for being here. I hope you take away something that will really help you embrace this next chapter of your journey and embody the raw radiance and take even just one tiny leap of faith into the unknown, have complete certainty and all the uncertainty because you are a powerful force and source of light. And I appreciate you being here and staying with us to the end. Please reach out if you have any questions and just know that I'm rooting for you. You've got this. We're all in this together. And I love and appreciate you so much. Even in this exhaustion, you inspire me so much. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Raj. Bye-bye.